So hello, everybody. Might be a new, I know this is a tight-knit community, so I may be a new face, and that's because I'm from this other city, kind of north of the bridge. Not the close one, the other big city kind of north of the bridge. So Brian Quick, I'm from Indianapolis, and back in November of last year, I became the CISO of a brand new company called Machinify. Here in the local community, you may know one of the four companies that merged together. It's called Rawlings. But these four companies merged together in the payment integrity industry. Healthcare payment and integrity, our customers are big insurance companies. So I'm the CISO of that company since November. Machinify has healthcare records for about 200 million Americans. So I get to be the CISO of that. No stress, no sleepless nights, but this is a really exciting opportunity. Before that, I was Deputy CISO at Elevance Health, which most of you may know as Anthem Health Insurance Company, Fortune 20 health insurance company. Before that, I VP of IT and CISO at Angie's List. And before that, we're getting into ancient history, but I was the VP of IT at Indiana University Health. And before that, I was the CISO of Indiana University Health, and we'll kind of leave it there. The topic I'm going to talk about today, when I think back of my almost 25 years of IT leadership experience at this point, I believe is the single most important thing that I learned along the way. I echo what Doug said of maybe it's just me. I find I was, and many of us are pretty terrible at leadership. When you get our first leadership positions, there's very little training that helped along the way. It's a lot of meeting and talking with people and talking about the challenges that you have and working through it. And this absolutely, I think, has become the number one thing that I look back in retrospect that I think about my success. And that's finding a path to yes. And especially how difficult that is in this profession we're in. If we're a CISO or a director of security or even director of IT, that the cliche about our work is that we are the department of no. We are the department of no. We are the place that great business ideas go to die. And that's maybe that's unfair. I didn't invent it. There's a reason why that's a cliche. And there's a reason why cliches exist. And I'm going to talk about finding a path to yes. And make no mistake, I am not a nice guy. I'm not a person, I'm just going to be a yes man. I'm going to succeed in business by I'm always going to say yes to things. I just want to caution you up front. Don't misread that you think, I know what he's going to say. You have to say no and say, when we get through the content today, hopefully you'll understand. I am not saying that at all. I'm talking about what are the conditions, what are the paths for us to find yes. I'm going to tell you up front, I'm going to need a volunteer to do a little bit of role playing with me. It's going to be painless, I promise. And so think now about something that you're wanting to support your job or your department that you haven't gotten yes for in your organization yet. Maybe it's an expenditure, it's a piece of software you want, it's a new position you want to go hire that you've been getting no and you're looking for yes. I'm going to need a volunteer and I'll appreciate your leadership in doing that, of helping me out, because we're going to model this a little bit today. Okay. Anybody feel like this in their job? Somebody comes to you in the business, maybe it's this IT system that they really desperately need to compete with, that other company that's kicking our rear ends. And they come to you and they start talking about it, or they've sent that email, and the very first thought in your head, raise your hand if this ever feels like you, right? That this is my first response. And I see some nodding yeses. And this, I will tell you, don't assume that I'm saying this is a character flaw. This is our natural response. And I believe this is an example of the thing that made us successful to get to the point where we are. I mean, we are trained in cybersecurity. We are literally trained in finding the bad things. We have fancy names for it, like, threat analysis, right? And we're like paid to do that thing. And we go take classes on spotting the threats, find the bad thing that could happen. And the real risk, and how this feeds into us becoming the Department of No, is that like we're saying no and we're identifying why your idea won't work before it even gets out of people's mouths. Like they haven't actually had the opportunity to tell us what in the blank they actually want to try to accomplish, and we're already, our brain with this training we have is looking for no. And like, let's just be honest, I think you hit on it a little bit, Jeff, in some of your talk, but like the end result of this, business leaders will find a path to yes. I mean, that's the business leader training of like, I have this thing I need to do, and come hell or high water, I'm gonna find a way to get that done. And if we are not strategic and helpful in that, then we are a thing to be avoided. I mean, this is why shadow IT is such a phenomenon. Again, you talked a lot about, if you think people aren't using this incredible, maybe the most powerful tool, that's ever arrived on the scene, if you think they aren't already using this, you're crazy. And if our goals are to create, safe, reliable, that our behaviors may be driving people to the very thing, that's outside of our control. It's also less relevant. This arrives too. You always feel like somehow I'm the last person to know that this is a thing that's going on in the business. It showed up in the 11th hour, like, well, this isn't just benign neglect. Very often it's if you're not strategic, then we don't need to bring you in until we've already decided. You'll just, bring up the roadblocks, and we'll just deal with that, that IT organization or that security organization later. It also, in a very real way, is creating a career ceiling for you. And the reality here, we can have, again, the thing that made us successful up to this point may not lead to our success moving forward. I have found in my career, if you aren't able to be strategic, if you aren't able to help support and grow the business, you will not be, you don't even get a ticket to be in the room when the strategy of the business is being discussed. And that is very, very career limiting. And I don't like that that's the case. It felt very unfair early in my career. Like, why don't they, understand how important it is that we support this stuff? But it is just the reality that, we're creating a career ceiling because we're not being perceived and we're not behaving as strategic partners. And so I want to talk today about a new path forward and give you some tools, an alternative to just step one, saying no when people show up with requests. And this, I think, hopefully you'll see, I found in my own career, just getting not even great at this, getting a little better at this has had, just for me, I think this change in my career, I think was the number one thing that helped me get to a point where, I was the deputy CISO of a Fortune 20 company. Early in my career, I would have said, that was the thing that I want, maybe the next job after that. And so, first of all, why do we do this? And I think you know this, and again, Jeff hit on some of this, but the cognitive overload of what we're all going through right now, it was bad before AI came on the scene. And it's just every day, it's like that TV show Breaking Bad. It's how could this possibly get more difficult tomorrow than it is today. And then tomorrow shows up and like, oh, now I see how this could get more difficult. I already had a lot on our plate. And that risk training kicks in, and no just feels faster for us. And I have some research, but I just go, Google search cognitive overload and look at some of the research, and like, this is a thing we've been researching since before AI. The cognitive overload of all this stuff on our plate, all this risks, all this information coming at us. Our brain just cannot deal with everything that we're being asked to do. And we as leaders responsible for these functions know feels like the fastest answer. Like, it's just your brain saying, can we please just stop? And no is the quick and easy answer. And it's a reflective no. Talked about this, and then we say no, and like, how do you feel when people say no to you? You think about that, of like, do I like this person? Does this person feel like they're helpful? Do they feel like they're in my shoes? When they don't even listen, and they say no. So do I have a volunteer? Is somebody ready to practice? Great. So Jeff, there's something that you want. What is that?
I need to move those 200 million healthcare records out to the cloud for rapid data analysis by a third party.
Wait, what? Like where?
So AWS, we've got a partner that wants to do data analysis on those records. It's going to give us some business.
Do you have budget to do that this year?
No, that's why I'm trying to put it in.
Yeah.
Well, our aging infrastructure can keep up with demands and partners.
Yeah, well, wait. I'm back at cloud.
Yes.
And like AWS cloud.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Like, I go on and on, but how does that...
Asking questions shows that you're actually listening. Because if you just say no...
Well, I asked some questions, and what I want to point out is that I'm going to give you some strategies. So I asked questions, but anybody feel like I was on board with what he was talking about? Like, yeah, like the likelihood that I'm going to support what you're after. And we would spend more time in that. I'm going to stay on time today. And so the alternatives to no that I want to talk about today aren't even just say, yeah, Jeff, yes. Like, if I'm in the security, oh, sounds great. Like, I trust you, Jeff. Like, let's just go with yes. Like, I think we could all think of some bad things, that could happen personally. Like, again, don't make the mistake that I'm just saying, say yes to those things. There was a whole movie about that, right? Like, I'm just going to say yes, that everything that comes across my, like, no, that could go very, very poorly, I think we understand. So I'm going to explain to you, I'm going to show you some of the alternatives to no that are a little different than what I was modeling there. And I'm going to start with, I'm going to do a more complicated scheme, but I'm going to start with, I learned this from my wife, who's a nurse health coach, by the way. A lot of this comes from mental health, so it's going to be interesting along the way. And I'm adapting it maybe inappropriately, but again, it's worked for me. So we'll see how this goes. But I'm going to start with, if you remember nothing else, when you have that fight or flight, stop the bus, I want to get off kind of situation, instead of saying that, when every fiber in your being is saying no, 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 the three most powerful words in leadership, I think, are tell me more. And you may not find yourself at like, Brian, I don't have time to say tell me more in every conversation. Okay, maybe this isn't every conversation, but when the head of sales wants to have a conversation, when the CEO or CFO or somebody whose opinions actually matter in the business, who as Jeff said, we don't exist, or these businesses don't exist for our pleasure. We exist at their in a very real way. They're paying our mortgage. When your brain says, no, I want to say no, I want to stop this conversation before it even begins, say, tell me more. Because tell me more isn't saying yes yet. It's just saying, tell me more. And I would encourage this in all sorts of situations, not just the no situations, but you ever have this situation with an employee where you're like, I don't even, like, what are you after? I don't even, I want to get out of this conversation. I am telling you, practice a little more saying, tell me more. It just gets to the heart of what we're looking for. Or tell me more about, in your case, tell me more about what's driving this desire to go to the cloud. Tell me more about the cost structure. Tell me more about, do you have any ideas how this is going to fit into your budget? Now, that conversation, we're in it together. And I haven't said yes, I haven't said no, I've said, tell me more. My encouragement is, we could stop here, and I will tell you, the last 10 years of my career have been great, and continued upward responsibility and great position. And it's kind of the little secret is, I think a lot of it has to do in just, instead of being the guy that told everybody no all the time because I'm really smart and I know all the bad things that can happen, saying tell me more and walking that path with people, and them at least feeling when I said no later that I heard them out, that I explained the no. Here's where I'm going to use some mental health practice stolen from my wife, a nurse health coach, maybe inappropriately, but I think it actually works really well. To get beyond, maybe a slightly more complex model to get beyond this, I'm going to tell you up front, by the way, this is like a toolkit. This isn't do every single one of these things in every conversation. It's once you get past tell me more, here's a mental model for how to think about where we drive the conversation from here. We still haven't said yes or no, by the way. And so there's this ORS toolkit, which is used in health coaching as one of the places that it comes from. But this I have found has been even more, super powerful and has helped, drive these discussions. Ask open-ended questions. You may not have caught it, but I asked questions the first time around, but they were very closed-ended questions. They're like, do you have this, yes or no? Just answer the question, Jeff. Just the facts, yes or no, budgeted? And by the way, I will point out in IT and security, we do this stuff exponentially more than you think we do, because we force people to go through a ticketing process or fill out the form, or we drive people to closed-ended questions constantly before we've even heard out, essentially a lot of times so we can say no before they even tell us what they have in mind. Or it's built on a premise that this all boils down to, describe to me exactly what you are trying to accomplish, and then I will make a pronouncement about whether that is allowed, whether that is permissible. Open-ended questions. Tell me more is the simplest one of those. Again, if you only remember one thing, but things like, what is the business problem that you're trying to solve with that? Tell me more about that. What would success look like? If we do this, what's that going to look like? What are the budget characteristics of that? What are the business performance characteristics of that? We're just IT, we're just security. If you don't understand, if you're not conversant in the how does our business make money, and you can't carry on a good conversation about the business characteristics, then start learning. Start figuring that out, because that's what makes it. If you can't converse on that, then you're also not strategic. That will hamper your career as well. I need this thing tomorrow. No, as opposed to, okay, tell me more, well, like what's driving the timeline of tomorrow? You know, what's the imperative around that? Open-ended questions. Make sense? You know, that's the first part of this. Affirmation. After you tell people to tell you more, affirm and acknowledge. You guys are really ridiculous to deal with, you know, with all these, you know, questions you ask or all these roadblocks you put in. Acknowledge. I can see why that's difficult for you. Again, I haven't committed to doing something different, but hear people out. Acknowledge this challenge. I can see that's a valid concern. I could see why this would be important for your business unit to get that done. I still am not sure how we're going to pay for it, but let's talk about that. I'm still not sure if that's going to meet our audit and security commitments. I'm still not sure if that's a safe thing. It may not be legal, but let's talk about these things. Build rapport. Again, before you say no to people, at least hear them out. So, you know, seek first to understand what they're trying to accomplish. Build rapport. You know, at least at the end of the day, people know when you're listening to them or not listening to them, right? I mean, you know if I'm listening to you or not listening to you. Affirmations. Reflections. After you affirm, I could see why that's be difficult. Say, so what I'm hearing you say, I just want to make sure I understand. You want to move the medical records out to this cloud service, and you want to do that to accomplish, we didn't have enough conversation, but I at least can reflect back. Again, I've not said yes or no, but I reflect back. The cognitive science around people just hearing you say back the things that they said to you, it is amazing. One, how they feel like even if you say no later, their perception of you and are you a good person? Are you a reasonable person? Did you hear it? Like you at least listen long enough to hear what I was trying to accomplish and what I had to say. Another fascinating thing happens is when people hear somebody else saying out loud that they like, you did actually say what I said to you, but in hearing it read back to me, does this ever happen to you in the sales process, Doug, that people say out loud the thing they think they want, and then hearing themselves say it out loud or hearing it fed back to them from somebody else, their brain kicks in a different way and they're like, oh, I think I actually don't want to do that. I think I want to do this other thing maybe, or suddenly this sounds like a terrible idea read back to me. You'd be surprised. So reflect back. And then at the end of that, this seems like reflection, but it's summarize. It's you want to do A in time frame B so that we can accomplish C. Have I understood what you're proposing? That's a preamble. Again, this takes way more time than saying no, but I am just telling you the place that it puts you in the organization is just way different. And you may not be able to have the time and space and mental fortitude to do this in every single request, but use your brain, find the strategic times to use this sort of strategy. You'll be fairly amazed. Okay, so we've just gotten to the heart of what you're trying to accomplish, and now what? Is now when I just say, great, sounds like you've really thought about this. No. No might be the next answer, but again, an encouragement is, can you find the yes if? And probably, I'll say even before the tell me more or the other things, that this thinking I would tell you that was my first realization about 10 years ago. Like, I'm constantly saying no, people hate me when I'm a person who only says no, and I'm never delivering candy Here's some candy for you to eat, Scott. Here's some candy for you, Taylor. Isn't it nice having candy? Isn't it nice, a person that hands out candy? That I can find the yes if condition. And that's the, Jeff, we can move to the cloud if, I understand what you're saying. Here are the things that I need. I need something that meets our high trust audit obligations. I need to find how it's going to fit into the budget. And people are getting tired of me asking for new budget for things. Like, I'm going to need you to carry some of that water. You're going to have to help me. If we do this, if we even want to consider this, you're going to have to help me find the money to do that. And that's a yes if, like that's describing the path from here to there. And Jeff might say, I don't have any budget either. I'm like, we are in a pickle then, aren't we, Jeff? Together, we're in that pickle. But it's the yes if. What would it take? And again, a mental exercise. What would it take? I need $1 billion. I need 27 new people. And now we're trying to find let's problem solve. Let's find those conditions that would get us to yes. Certainly in security roles, here are the multiple security. I'm using that part of my brain that I have the training of what are all the bad things that can happen, and we engage together. When we do this reflexive no and we're adversaries with each other, those security problems are your problem. Like you're just here, like we're in this boat together trying to find the path to yes together. This approach, yes if, I'm reframing the whole conversation. I'm strategic. Like these are people that get a ticket into the yes if people get a ticket into the boardroom. They get to talk with the CEO. They get to talk with the CFO because they're problem solvers. They help move the business forward. Your reputation, you even just do this a little bit. You do this 10% of the time in the right times, transforms your role in an organization that I find. And then there's the strategic no. There'd be like, Jeff, I've so enjoyed this conversation we've had about moving the medical records to cloud. I have taken the time, I've understood your perspective. It's going to be, what's the TV show? It's going to be a no for me, dog, right now. But here, let's revisit this again next year when the new budget comes on, or when budget planning comes up, or when we finish this project or that project. It's a strategic no. And again, people don't love hearing no, but when you take the time to understand, like, I actually heard you out, I engaged in a real conversation, we tried solving through it, like, here's why this is a no for me right now. You preserved a relationship that wasn't like super painful to come have a conversation with you. Even this, and in fact, this makes you a strong business leader. Saying yes all the time doesn't make you a strong business leader. This is a person who makes, people do secretly want this person who catches spears in their organization, who is, thinking about risks and engaged in that conversation. It's the strategic no. Do you see how this is different than reflexive no? It's not just like, stop talking, I don't want to engage this conversation anymore. It's like, for the following reasons that we talked through, and I understand you, now you understand me. It's another dynamic of this, of if you expect people to listen to what you have to say, the pre-step to that is that you've heard what they have to say. I just, covered the highest level of this, and my action plan for you, a couple of things. If this is a difficult space for you, start with, there's a lot of surprising amount of content embedded in this, but I would start with, when you are saying no, and it's the reflexive instant no, it's the please go away and stop talking to me about this now. Hopefully, I see enough chuckles, like you recognize that maybe that happens every once in a while in your management discipline. Replace it with tell me more. Again, I've been doing this I've gotten better at talking in the business, and as I get old and cranky, it's gotten harder for me sometimes to deal with like bad employees or misbehaving employees, I should say. They're not bad people, they're just misbehaving sometimes. Tell me more has been like, it eases all my discomfort in these conversations. It's just tell me more. It's like running towards the flames. Tell me a little more. If you want to get a little more into this, or like tell me more got so far now, what are some other questions? Like this, I think ORs or something like it is a good practice. Definitely open-ended questions because they drive the conversation further. Acknowledge, you tell people, I'm on your team. We're in this together. I see why that is difficult for you. Reflect, read back to them what they've said to you. Again, even if you say no later, you're a person that listened to them. And summarize, like you want to do A by B, like that alone, you're a person who's like, suddenly in my brain, I could categorize you as a person who's strategic, who can understand, like you tell the sweetest words back to a business leader, or you just said back to them the thing that they hold most precious right now. Like, wow, you're pretty smart and strategic. Like it's silly, but it's an amazing strategy. I would also tell you, once you nail this discipline for you, find it in your team, because our more junior, the people we supervise are some of the absolute worst at this. And it's not that they're bad people, but like I don't know if you've noticed this, but in our industry, we tend to draw people who like, I just want to know what the rule is for when this happens, this is the answer I give, as opposed to like, let's use our brains, let's talk through the rationale, the questions we ask, start bringing other people into this mix of thinking about this. Like, is there a path to yes? Again, you're not making a commitment, you're just asking, can you tell me more so that I can understand this request a little better? My challenge is, in the next couple of weeks, start with tell me more. Find, once a week, find a thing you're going to say no to and just say, tell me more, and see where the conversation goes. I promise you that this will advance your career, will change how you're perceived in the organization, and even more importantly than what it will do for you selfishly in this world we live in, that this drives value, this approach drives value in the business. Instead of leaving, people coming to us, the Department of No, and we leave their hopes and dreams dashed on the doorstep of our department, that we're being strategic and we're finding some of those yeses of, maybe there's a way we could support this, and don't underestimate bringing people into the conversation. We go from being an externality, that security problem, that IT operations problem, that's your problem. It pulling them into our, into the strategy, working on it together through this, cognitive approach, through a conversational approach, will change your career, will change the outcomes that you create in the place that you work. I'm going to stop there. Really appreciate your time today. Nice to meet some new faces. And find me on LinkedIn too if you want to continue the conversation. Thanks.